102 days straight of having new Clippers Talk episodes for you. Welcome in. I'm Adam Osland. It's been since October 4th. That was the last day we didn't have a show here on Clippers Talk. Appreciate you guys rolling with me. Coming up on today's show, we got more post-game audio from last night after the Clippers won by 11 over the Miami Heat in a game they were down by as many as 13 in. But they came through in the second half, specifically Terance Mann and Norman Powell revved the engine a little bit. Harden we'll talk about Terance Mann in a little bit. James Harden and Norman Powell. James Harden had 21 of his, where did it end up being? Of his 26 points in the second half. Powell had 22 of his 29 points in the second half of the ball game. Powell had 11 points on the third quarter, 11 points in the fourth quarter. James Harden had 13 of his 26 points in the third quarter alone as the Clippers started to get some separation, and the defense was very good, and they figured out the zone for Miami. And this team, I thought, put together a really good final three quarters. And I don't even think the first quarter was that bad. It was just Miami was that hot from the outside. All right, who do we got in here? 3 dozen. Kaylee saying, "What's up, Adam?" Hi, Kaylee. Why not the Clippers? Says, "Hey, Adam." Why not? Mark says, "Hello, Adam." Josh said, Done. Kaylee said, "This was not just a necessary win, but also the way we won." I agree with that. They figured Miami out as they went along. They tightened the screws on them defensively, and offensively, they were able to adjust, make the appropriate adjustments, and figure out that zone, attack it, get Big Zoo involved. And again, Norman Powell and James Harden, very good in the second half. And I also felt like Kawhi Leonard, who we'll hear from in just a little bit, had some key moments with those 2 steals right before he was out of the ball game. What up, Todd? Good afternoon. Jay said that Ty Lue quote, "Wanted to see something." We'll talk about Terance Mann. We'll listen to that quote coming up here. Ralph said, "What up, Saltier?" What up, Ralph? Obviously a listener of Fred Rogan and Rodney Pete. Alex said, "Let's get a little streak going." Yeah, they need to. Because I don't even need a preview tomorrow's game against the Brooklyn Nets. Guys, they're really bad. I thought about, I like doing these previews. What can you say about Brooklyn? The Clippers have no business losing that game. Brooklyn has lost something like 9 of their last 10. I think they have 3 wins in their last 15 games. And they come into that game having lost 5 in a row. And they have a game tonight up in Portland where the Clippers will be on Thursday. So they get Brooklyn on the second night of a back-to-back. That's just a game you have to win. It is completely inexcusable if the Clippers somehow lose that game tomorrow night against the Brooklyn Nets, who are 22nd overall offensively on the season. And defensively, they're 25th. So there's really no area that is a strength for them. So I don't even feel like I need to waste the energy. You don't want to overlook anyone. I'm saying if the Clippers come out and play their brand of basketball and impose their will, there shouldn't be an issue there. Really shouldn't. Outside of, I don't know, Cam Thomas going off. That has happened to the Clippers in the past. He dropped 40 on 2-1-3 before. But I don't even think he's playing right now. I mean, they already traded Dorian Finney-Smith. Ben Simmons has been playing a little bit better, I believe, as of late, has looked healthier. Happy for him. He had 14 points in their most recent loss, 10 before that. Kind of filling up the box score with those chunky stat lines, as Chuck Mockler would say. Great. This is not a team that should be able to hang with the Clippers. I like Nick Claxton. I'm not trying to disrespect anyone, but they have our old friend Keon Johnson, who the Clippers drafted. But I'm not saying the players out there are trying to tank, but they traded Dorian Finney-Smith. More guys will likely be moved before the trade deadline because they probably won too many games early in the season. Now they have to catch up with some more losses to get back into the hunt for Cooper Flagg. But they're 13-26. What are we talking about here? That's just a game the Clippers have to handle business. Yeah, and Cam Thomas is out. So they got a win against the Bucks recently. The Bucks have been known to give away some games. So their last, about 2 weeks ago, they beat the Bucks 113-110. They beat them twice, actually. 2 of their last 3 wins in their last 10 games are against Milwaukee. Before that, they beat the Raptors. Before that, the Pacers. They did have a 3-game winning streak. This looks like back in early December, late November against the Kings, Warriors, and Suns. I'm telling you, they won too many games for Sean Marks' liking, I'm guessing, because they got a ton of picks and they have the ability to get Cooper Flag, and they're 13-26 on the season, and they've lost 5 straight now. So they're making up for some of those wins earlier in the season. But you look at, last 15 games. Let's go off their ratings there before we get to post-game audio from last night. So they're 28th in offense the last 15 games, and they are 22nd defensively. I'm not sure if this team has an obvious strength, an area where they do thrive. I think they're bad overall. They're 13th defensively. Excuse me, not defensively. They're 13th when it comes to rebounding percentage over the last 15 games. That's something. I'm just trying to get this non-preview preview out of the way as fast as possible. What about shooting wise? Because in today's NBA, the one way that teams rise up and beat you, bad squads, is they just have a hot shooting night. New Orleans Pelicans almost had that against the Clippers recently, where they were hot from the outside and they almost won that game. Last 15 games, Brooklyn is shooting 32% from 3. That's 28th in the league. Are they getting free throw attempts up? 13th in free throw attempts last 15 games. I'm just turnovers last 15 games. They're probably still better than the Clippers there. No, they're not. They're 28th. They're turning the ball over 17 times per game the last 15. Just do not have a letdown. It is more about what you do against Brooklyn tomorrow night for the Clippers than anything the Nets can do out there. Don't let them start fast. That's important against these teams. You let them get confidence. That can be a problem. But the Clippers will be on the front end of a back-to-back tomorrow. They play it into a dome. Tip off at 7:30 against Brooklyn. Then on Thursday, they will be in Portland, where the Nets are tonight. Yeah, Cam Johnson, he's having a heck of a season. He will likely be traded at some point here. I would expect that. They can't afford not to trade some of these guys that are getting them wins. He hasn't played, though, over the last week. So let me see Brooklyn Nets injury report here, because people are saying Cam Thomas is out, but Cameron Johnson has had an ankle injury. He's questionable for tonight's game. Cam Thomas has been out with a hamstring injury. D'Angelo Russell has had a shin issue. He's questionable for tonight's game. Nick Claxton is day-to-day. He's got a hamstring. Bojan Bogdanovic, he's got a foot injury. He's out for tonight's game. Ben Simmons, knee and back, questionable for tonight's game. It's really hard to do a preview and evaluate a team like this that is not only playing for the future, but they have this many guys questionable or out. That can be scary. You don't know who could rise up and beat you. I think part of the reason the Clippers had trouble early on with the Miami Heat's offense is because without Bam, they were playing faster earlier in the game. So sometimes the devil you know, etc. I could be trying to sell you on tomorrow night's game, I guess, here, and just adding some meaning to it, because it's just a game. The importance of tomorrow night's game is that on paper, it looks like the Clippers have a great opportunity to get back to 5 games above 500. That's what this is about, right? You play your brand of basketball, you should have no issues with the Brooklyn Nets. And yes, the starters should not have to play more than 25 minutes. So let's talk about some of the stuff coming out of last night's game that I wasn't able to get to last night post game on AM 570 LA Sports. If you want to check it out in the live section here on the YouTube side, subscribe, like, do all that stuff. But I thought we had a solid post game show. We just couldn't get to all the audio. So a couple things I want you to hear. Starting with this, Norman Powell and just, players being conflicted about even playing last night still is difficult. It is a extremely challenging time right now in Los Angeles with the wildfires going on for everyone. Specifically for those affected, of course, directly, indirectly, but even somebody like Norman Powell, apparently his place was safe, but this was a question from Tomer Azarli about just the Clippers resuming the season last night. And I thought Norman Powell gave an insightful answer here. I want you guys to hear from him.
Over the weekend, obviously, the games got postponed. It was kind of a strange time. Like, did it feel weird to get back on the court today, or did it feel right at all? Like, how did it feel getting back?
I'm 50-50 on it. You kind of even just going about things, your day-to-day stuff, knowing that people are really, going through some tough times, like they're losing everything, and you're, focused on basketball. It's a tough thing to focus on, just acting like it's normal. And like you're in the city where these strategies and stuff, the fires are going on. But like I said, we got a job at hand. They cleared us to play, so you got to focus on that. They wouldn't have cleared us if it wasn't safe enough for us to play, I guess. But yeah, you just focus on what you can control and try to take your mind at your job and then worry about things after.
There was Norman Powell post game last night. This part right here,
your day-to-day stuff, just going about things, your day-to-day stuff, knowing that people are really, going through some.
That part right there gets to me because there's almost this type of survivor's guilt, or if you've been unaffected, you almost feel guilty going about your normal day-to-day stuff or enjoying things. I felt some of that. I ordered pizza the other night on DoorDash. I'm like, do I want somebody to have to go out there and bring me pizza? Like, I kind of reasoned through it and was like, is this some entitled 1% thing where I shouldn't be having someone deliver me anything during these times? But then I thought, well, I think they're responding. People who work for DoorDash, like they turn on, I'm guessing it's like Uber or whatever. You turn it on, you make yourself available. So those people were looking for work. But it's just weird, right? It's hard to do the normal day-to-day things when so many people are suffering right now. And yeah, I have felt a little bit guilty at times. Just, I don't know. Am I doing enough? Am I contributing enough? Am I too selfish and worried about myself? And, I did the game from Burbank last night because who knows? I live next to Griffith Park. There are matchsticks disguised as trees that definitely has me on edge. I don't know. I could relate to what Norman Powell was saying there. That resonated with me. I think a lot of people can. But bottom line is, like he talked about, they had a basketball game last night. They could bring some joy to the city. They got a victory. It was a well-played game. And it was a way to focus on something else. And that's what they were able to offer this fan base in the city. And, it was nice. It was nice just to be able to kind of immerse yourself in basketball for a little bit. And it was a welcome distraction and short-lived. I go home and you're thinking about it again. You're watching the news, the fires and everything. But just wanted you guys to hear from a player there and get his perspective. Now back to the basketball side. Here was Kawhi Leonard kind of being asked about how he's feeling out there post game after the Clippers 109-98 victory over Miami. Kawhi had 6 points, 3 of 9 shooting in his 21 minutes, or it was just under 21 minutes, I think, technically. Here he was in the locker room.
How you know you're back where you want to be? What are you looking for from yourself from game to game?
I'm just playing, really, and trying to do my job to help the team win. That's all I do. I feel good. As long as I'm feeling good on the court, I'm able to move quickly, get to my spots. That's all I'm looking for.
Why is this something you can't do right now that you've normally done in the past with your game?
This is an interesting question from this is Brad Turner of the LA Times.
Why is this something you can't do right now that you've normally done in the past with your game?
Can't do?
Yeah.
No. No.
I love this. This is so on brand for Kawhi.
No.
Just a no.
So you're able to do pretty much everything you want to, just not to the degree you've done in the past so far?
If you want to put it that way, I'm playing in the same way I usually play.
So he kind of pressed him on it, saying.
So you're able to do pretty much everything you want to, just not to the degree you've done in the past so far?
If you want to put it that way, I'm playing in the same way I usually play.
So Kawhi doesn't feel like he's limited out there. Rhythm and timing may be off, and it has been. But in terms of how he's moving, explosive movements, getting to his spots, I don't think he feels that limited. And I'm going to say the play where he took it from the left wing with Rozier on him and then got to the far side mid-post for that fall away, that was the most he's looked like Kawhi Leonard to me so far in his 3 games back. That was the most encouraging, positive sign to me. That looked like the guy that I love to call MJ96. I've been saying since he became a Clipper, even before that, with the Raptors, that he looks like second three-peat MJ with the way he moves. He's never been as explosive as first three-peat MJ, but second three-peat MJ, where he's a little bit older, mid-range, more refined, not just getting by on elite athleticism. Kawhi, I don't know if there's ever been a time where he's been the most athletic player on either roster in a game he's participated in. It is about a high degree of skill that he has amassed and refined over the years. So overall, this is a good sign. The bucket he got in transition, as well as he hit 2 jumpers in the first quarter, and then the third quarter, got out and ran a little bit. And I was watching his movement when he was running, when he knew the Clippers had numbers, when he turned on the Jets, and it looked like as fast as Kawhi Leonard was last season. He had the big hands, also a similarity in parallel to Michael Jordan. But I watched that play specifically to see, his gait, if there was any limp or anything like that, or if it looked like he was dragging his right leg more. No, when he got on his horse a little bit, he was moving. And I think that was a play where he got that bucket in transition with a little in and out move on Terry Rozier and went around him for the layup. I think eventually kind of fell to his side or to the floor on that play. But we'll see later tonight on the injury report, because as I always say, you're never going to feel secure with Kawhi Leonard. Even if he gets through a game and everything looks fine, he could wake up the next morning just like he did back in late March, early April, and the knee swells up. You just never know. So we'll always be crossing our fingers and walking on eggshells and, be on pins and needles with Kawhi and updates. And they're all on a back-to-back. So does he play tomorrow? Even in, let's say, he wakes up, feels great. Does he still play tomorrow? Did they save him for the Portland game on Thursday? I would guess he plays tomorrow's game if he's feeling good against Brooklyn and then doesn't play against Portland. Guys, I don't know if Kawhi Leonard will ever play another back-to-back, to be honest with you. I'm fine with it. There have been plays. Curie our friend from Japan said he's moving good, but still seems afraid of contact. I would point to a couple of the plays he's had in transition where he wasn't able to finish. Game 1 against Atlanta, where he had a one-on-one situation and kind of just flipped it up, I think with the left hand, and couldn't get a layup to go. And then last night he had a similar situation where he waited for the defender to go by him and then put up the layup and then missed it, a gimme. I think that's just part of getting that feel back for those plays. But I was looking for him. I said pregame, I want to see him knock down a mid-range shot because he had a couple of good looks so far, but hasn't hit them. And then he had one early and it kind of rimmed out, toilet bowled out. And then he kept going to it. And then eventually hit 2 in a row in the first quarter. And he looked like Kawhi in the mid-range. But specifically the one where he had more of a fall away. After he went around Terry Rozier with some quickness there. And that, to me, that's a really good sign. Overall, just the fact that his movement seems to be better game after game. So it doesn't seem like the knee is swelling up from one game to the next. Obviously, they just had 4 days off, and he didn't play in the game on Wednesday. So he's had, a week off between games because he didn't play in the game in Denver. But these are good things overall from Kawhi when it comes to the eye test and just how he's moving out there. Jason said, as long as the NBA doesn't play back-to-backs in the playoffs, Kawhi should never have to play back-to-backs again. Yeah, I don't think they'll get to that point. All right, so Coach Lou, a lot of you want to talk about Terance Mann getting the DNP coach's decision last night. I understand. It's a storyline. It's a big deal. Just wasn't that unexpected to me. We've been talking about for a while when this team is healthy, who's out of the rotation. Well, Amir Coffey, Chris Dunn, and Derek Jones Jr. have all been better so far this season than Terance Mann, who, when he started to look better, broke his left index finger, has just come back from that, has looked all right, kind of like he's picked up where he left off. But there are 3 guys with overlapping skill sets, with similar skill sets that have been better than Terance Mann so far this season. I think objectively. Guys that do a lot of what he does and have done it better. I think Terance Mann is a worse defender than Derek Jones Jr. and Chris Dunn. Maybe he's slightly better than Amir Coffey. I'd say, yeah, I think he's slightly better than Amir. But there's distance between him, I think, and Chris Dunn. I think they're a cut above, he and Derek Jones Jr., than Terance Mann. You could say he's a better ball handler, but maybe not than Chris Dunn. Better ball handler than Derek Jones Jr., better than Amir Coffey. Can he create for himself better than those guys? Probably not over Amir. And DJ has been slashing to the hoop a little bit. And even Chris Dunn has a little bit of a floater game where late in the shot clock, he can go at his defender with some physicality and get a push shot. In theory, he should be better, but he wasn't taking shots earlier in the season. Now, Chris Dunn at least is taking them right now, and more on Chris Dunn in a little bit. But my stance was what I would do is have KPJ out of the rotation and have Chris Dunn and Terance Mann off the bench for ball handling duties with the second unit, and they'll be mixed and matched with either Norm or Kawhi or James Harden anyways. But those two, I think, are good enough together to get you by with backup lineups if they're on the court. And I think can complement each other, and they're similar, but I wouldn't hate those two, and that could alleviate not having KPJ in the rotation. But I never felt like Coach Lou was going to do that. I always felt like KPJ was going to be the guy that was cemented as the backup point guard. I think Kevin Porter Jr. is somebody that Coach Lou looks at as a long-term project. The Clippers look at him in that way. and he values his ability to go get a bucket or create for others and the high talent level he has. Whether or not he can put it all together remains to be seen and play winning basketball. I think he's been a little bit better as of late. Got off to a rough start, started 0 of 5 yesterday, but turned it around. Had 2 blocks. They only credited him with 1 on the ESPN, but it was 2. His defense has been solid. It's just my stance on KPJ is he has the higher ceiling than a lot of these guys, but he's less of a sure thing right now, knowing what you're going to get from him. So I think they're valuing the higher ceiling because he's young, he's on a 2-year deal, and they want to see what they can get out of him. And if they can enhance his strengths and minimize his weaknesses with some of the stuff he was doing in Houston. So I get the logic and the vision with KPJ. My preference, though, I don't like the erratic play. I didn't like it with Russ. I would go Chris Dunn and Terance Mann off the bench together, as neither guy is as good as KPJ with the basketball, but together, can they do enough to get you by against other teams' second units? I think so. But I see the rationale with KPJ. Even though he takes some ill-advised shots, even though he took a shot out there, Kawhi's out there with him, and so you don't need to force this. You could probably, sometimes he has blinders and tunnel vision and is looking for his own, even when he has better options. It's one thing if they don't have many options out there of guys who can create for themselves, and then it's hard to criticize even some of the tough shots he takes because somebody has to take them. But it's another when he's doing that still when there are better options. But here was Coach Lou post-game with the question from Tomer Azarli about Terance Mann not getting any run last night.
What do you think Terance play today? I'm wondering what was kind of the thinking with him. And you had a conversation with him before the game about
that? I had a conversation with him before the game.
What was the thinking? Kind of changed the rotation?
I just wanted to see something.
Okay, this is not the first time I've heard Coach Lou say,
I just wanted to see something.
I just wanted to see something. This is typically what he'll go to when he doesn't feel like explaining his lineup or rotation decision. I just want to see something.
I just wanted to see something.
It's a way to kind of deflect and not have to elaborate much more or not get too many follow-ups and have it become a distraction if Terance Mann is out of the rotation, because he didn't say that. What he said was,
I just wanted to see something.
No, he did say he had a conversation with T-Man.
What was kind of the thinking with him? And you had a conversation with him before the game about
I had a conversation with him before the game.
So Mann knew he wasn't playing. He got a DNP-CD. That could lead you to draw a lot of different conclusions. Number one, they played a 10-man rotation last night because Mo Bamba got some minutes. So if Mo Bamba wasn't playing, would that have meant Terance Mann would have gotten run and Coach Lou is going with the 10-man rotation? Or is it a 9-man rotation where you have a backup big that sometimes plays and sometimes doesn't, depending on the matchup? We don't know. I think it's a leap to just say Terance Mann is definitively out of the rotation. My guess is in this back-to-back, he will play in one of these 2 games. But for him to be out and KPJ still be playing heavier minutes as he got up to 16, that does solidify for me that if there is a minutes crunch or somebody is starting to be phased out of the rotation, it could be Terance Mann. It's more likely him than KPJ.
I just wanted to see something.
You didn't want to see something with KPJ? Or does the next game Terance Mann get an opportunity and KPJ is out? And there's actually going to be a battle going on. But he talked to Terance Mann about it.
before the game about
I had a conversation with him before the game.
That means he'd have to have a conversation with KPJ. So it leads to a lot of speculation, which is fine, because I think more questions would be coming or would be more of a distraction if he just said straight up right now, Terance Mann is out of the rotation. He may be, but I tend to think my guess is he's not yet. Last couple of games with T-Man, since he returned from injury, from the broken finger, he's played 3 games. He looked really good against Atlanta. Everybody did in that 131-105 game. His first game back, he had 12 points, 5 of 5 shooting, 2 of 2 from 3. He didn't hesitate, was decisive. Against Minnesota, I thought he was actually okay in his 10 minutes. And a lot of people were saying, why wasn't he playing late instead of KPJ? There was some controversy there. It could have been him. It could have been Chris Dunn. It could have been Amir Coffey. He played 10 minutes. He knocked down 1 of 2 threes. He had 3 points, 1 assist, 0 boards, 0 blocks, 1 steal. But it was an energy thing. It was a spark thing with him out there, as you noticed, which is typically what Terance Mann gives you when he's right. Then against Denver, they get shellacked. He has 3 points, knocks down a 3. So he has been shooting it better from 3. I think he's something like 6 for his last, 6 for his last 10. So since he came back, let's forget about the sample size before that because he was out for over a month. Since he came back, last 3 games, he is 4 for 6 from the outside. It's not a big enough sample size to put a lot of stock into, but it's not nothing either because he at least wasn't turning them down. But he just hasn't played many minutes. He has played a total of 38 minutes in 3 games since he came back. Was the phase out already happening? Is this a part of that? Now you get to a point where, because he went from 16 minutes against Atlanta, it was a blowout. Guys were getting minutes. 10 minutes against Minnesota in a big game. 12 minutes against Denver, they got blown out. And then he doesn't play last night.
I just wanted to see something.
What do you guys think Coach Lou wanted to see? Because my first guess is how it could look with this 10-man rotation, which could really be at 9, but sometimes Mo Bamba plays, sometimes he doesn't, based upon the opposition. Like, he only played the first half of that game last night, I think. All 8 of his minutes, I believe, were in the first half. And actually, he played pretty well against Miami. He had 5 points and 7 boards in 8 minutes. Knocked down a 3-pointer. I think he had an easy one, a putback. Also, for for his 2 buckets, he went 2 of 3. But they didn't play in the second half. They went small at the end of the third quarter. It worked. They went +4 in like 2.5, 3 minutes with Batum out there. Miami was small too. They didn't have Bam yesterday. What's your guys' best guess on what Coach Lou is looking for? Jack Coughlin said could have been an experiment because Jimmy and Bam were out too. Jason said it does bother me a tad that KPJ gets a decent amount of minutes with the ones because I can't really justify it. Mike said, just want to see something equals just want to see what it's like if we don't play you.
I just wanted to see something.
You mean looking for a reaction from Terance Mann? If he's going to cause a stink in the locker room or just if they can get by without playing him? Yawning Tears said, do you think Ty Lue just wanted to see a bigger lineup with having both Batum and Bamba in? Okay. Was that one of the lineups then in the first half? Batum and Bamba were in? I'm trying to think. Start of the second quarter. End of the first quarter into the second. Let me see start of the second quarter who was out there. It was, let me grab my notes here, guys. Batum, Amir, DJ, KPJ, and Mo Bamba. So you're right. A little bit bigger. But it's not like Mann couldn't play instead of Amir or KPJ or DJ there, and you're not losing a ton of size. I don't know. That's interesting. Wayne's saying we have to get KPJ more minutes. Okay. I think he's gotten plenty of minutes, plenty of leash. F said Kawhi's answer that he's playing the same as he always does was fun. Bay City said, hey, Adam. What up, Bay? Curie said, tradition bench lineup or small bench in the team man and Batum. This is a decision time. Mike Dang said, want to see something.
I just wanted to see something.
Equals, want to see if we can afford to trade you. I don't know about that. Drive-by Buddy said, coach looking for enthusiasm. I don't think Mann's not bringing that. Bay City said that time of the year is coming up, trade season. Renzo the old head said, how about you see something with KPJ sitting in the bench with his garbage play style? Problem is, it's not always garbage. It can be. One possession can be really good. One can be really bad. They could have happened in that order. But I thought he started off obviously slow with his shot, was probably looking for it too much, but then blended in a little bit more after that and had some good defensive plays too. Mark Jag said he might be trying to light a fire under T-Man.
I just wanted to see something.
Maybe. F said, is Mann tradable as an asset still with his contract? Yes, his contract is very tradable, guys. Even with the season he has had, I have no doubt that teams will be calling about Terance Mann. Because first of all, his contract extension doesn't kick in till after this year. Understand that. The 3-year extension for $47 million is after this year, where he's making then around $15.5 million. This season, I think he's still making 10, 11. It's great value for a player like that. And I don't think 15, with how the cap goes up every season, is a bad deal. Yeah, he's making, I think, 11 or a little bit over that this season. So you're working with $11 million if you trade him. That's also what PJ Tucker makes, by the way. Who's a guy for $11 million? A 1-for-1 type of trade that you could make with Terance Mann. I have brought up, and I said this right before he got benched. I did a show on here where I said, it's time. Terance Mann has to play much better, or they got to take him out of the starting lineup. And then the very next game, they took him out. It was the right move. He got his shot. He wasn't playing well enough. It was disappointing because I'm such a Terance Mann fan, but it had to be done. I'm trying to see what I called that episode. This was, and when exactly it was. But I made it clear, as much as I've defended Terance Mann, he needed to start faster this season. It didn't happen. And it made complete sense to me. And they took him out of the starting lineup. Now I got people on X saying, well, now that Kawhi's back in the starting lineup, they should see how Terance Mann looks with him. Or that Terance Mann gives you a little bit of everything that you get with Amir or Chris Dunn or with DJ. So it makes sense that he could be the starter again. Guys, he lost that starting spot. Fair and square. It's meritocracy. Best man for the job out there. And T-Man once again got off to a slow start and once again was shrinking. Playing small, not taking shots. It's one thing if you're like Chris Dunn. He ain't making them right now, but he's damn sure taking them. I'm impressed in some ways that he could go 0 of 6 from 3 last night, because that means he was 0 of 3 and kept shooting them. They're going to leave him wide open. He knows eventually they'll fall. He's going to continue to drop them down. He's going to or at least put them up. That's what you need. Renzo the old head said, NBA gods are just making Dunn and DJ miss every 3. I have no trust in them shooting these past couple of games. Well, we'll talk about Dunn coming up. We got some audio from Big Zoo about him. F said, tough. They decided to extend Mann and wait on Amir. Amir was traded last summer in a move for Malcolm Brogdon. Amir's on a great team-friendly deal. So Jason's saying, who's the guy we can get for $22 million who would accept Mann and PJ's contract, or who's the team? I don't think it's. Some of you might bring up Colin Sexton or John Collins. Let's see. I think Colin Sexton makes like 18 million and John Collins is a little over 20 million. Yeah, Colin Sexton is at 18.3 million. John Collins' contract, which is expiring after this season. Sexton has another year after this year. He is making 23. So, no, 26, sorry. You throw in Bones, you can get there. I just don't think, I don't know. I think teams still like T-Man enough, but they're probably thinking they can get a couple of seconds, maybe a first for John Collins. If you're Utah, why are you bringing in somebody that's actually older than John Collins and Terance Mann for a team that's rebuilding? What sense does that make? You want younger assets. What do I think a package of Mann, PJ, and Bones can get you? I don't think it can get you John Collins. I think somebody like Larry Nance, but he's injured right now. And it wouldn't take that much because contract-wise, let's see, Larry Nance, so Larry Nance is making almost exactly what Terance Mann is at just over 11 million. Would you give up, what's the timeline on Larry Nance Jr.? But he's a free agent after this season. And he hadn't been playing much. Does anybody have the timeline on that? I think he broke his hand, right? So both guys have had hand injuries this season. It's his right hand. And by the way, we're looking for an update on Derek Jones Jr. later tonight. Not just Kawhi on the injury report, but DJ with that left hand. So I think he's out for at least another week, Larry Nance. I don't think I'd give up T-Man for a guy on an expiring. I'd give up PJ. M7MD Boys said, I bet T-Man is going to get better from this. Only going to give him more motivation. Problem is, he's 28. He came into this season knowing that there had to be a fire underneath him, that they brought in guys that should have been pushing him, and they did. When you bring in, I said it at the time, Chris Dunn and Derek Jones Jr. along with Batum back, man should have been feeling the heat and some pressure to perform, and he didn't. He didn't even take shots to start the season, and when he did, he was cold from the outside. Wayne said, now I see our team is stacked. No minutes for Jordan, Kobe, or Cam. It's a catch-22, Adam. Unfortunately, when the Clippers had those injuries to DJ and Terance Mann at the same time, Jordan Miller really didn't take advantage of his opportunity to the point I would have liked to have seen. I'm not giving up on him. I'm not going to overanalyze it. He went through a little bit of a confidence thing, I think, as every young guy does. I mean, look at Dalton Connect. He went 3 weeks without making a three after starting off the season super hot. Holo Dolo said some of the Clipper scouts were at the Raptors game looking around. Could T-Man being out of the rotation have some correlation there? I mean, I can't confirm that, and I don't know. I've told you pretty much everybody has to be considered to be moved in a season like this. You have to, everybody has a price. And I think Terance Mann is their best asset that makes sense to be traded because they have other guys who can obviously fill his role. You can't say that for every player on the Clippers roster, but they clearly have guys that do a lot of the same stuff that Terance Mann does. That's what I'm talking about going back to the offseason when they brought in Chris Dunn and DJ. I'm not saying that made him expendable, and it doesn't now, but you start reading the tea leaves. People have been after Terance Mann around the league for a while. They didn't trade him for Fred VanVleet. If there's still interest, maybe not to that level, but I think there would be. That's the guy that you could dangle and fill a hole elsewhere because they have deficiencies elsewhere where they are limited with size in the front court, with a true backup ball handler that's more seasoned than KPJ. They have guys that can do what Terance does. They are missing things and do have flaws that Terance doesn't really help you in that area. So could you trade him for a team that might have a surplus in that area? And they view some guys as being more expendable. Chris G said it's starting to look like one of the favorite Clippers might be gone soon with how things are playing out. F said Mann's corner shooting versus Dunn is crazy. Yeah, Dunn has been really bad on the corners so far this season. I think he's at like 26%. I don't. But just like his shooting to start the year wasn't sustainable at 45% the first 12 games from three, what's happening now is also not sustainable. Chris Dunn, after last night, is below his career average from three, 32%. Now he's at 31%. He is going to have, as long as he continues to put them up, he's going to have a hot streak somewhere, you would expect. Jason says, yeah, Dunn's impact is still high, even when he's off. I give him a lot of credit for just continuing to shoot and play the right way. More on that. Progression to the mean coming for Dunn. I agree. It has to. He's not this bad of a shooter. He's not an 0 of 6 3-point shooter. The last 88 games, the last 2 years in Utah, he shot over 40%. It's like 123 sample size from three. Kaylee said Dunn's amazing defense excuses his offense to some extent. Yes, it does. It's not like DJ is hot on offense either right now, not from three. But he offers more when he's not hitting threes. He's a slasher. He's so good in transition. I would like to see what DJ with the Stars looks like, though. Well, I mean, I think we've seen it. Not with Kawhi, I guess, is what you're saying. Obi Toppin, but they just paid him. And he's playing solidly in Indiana. Why would they want to get rid of Obi Toppin? Like, I like him. And yeah, he makes sense for the Clippers. Does it make sense for the Indiana Pacers to trade him? They just paid him. You got to look at it from the other team's side. You can't just be so myopic and just in the Clippers bubble. Mark Jaggs said Dunn and DJ and even Batum make Zoo's life easier on defense. He doesn't have to cover for so many guys. It really does. It's a great point, Mark. And we'll hear from Zoo here in a second about that specifically with Chris Dunn. Renzo said, I love Dunn's go-to move where he drives to the paint, does a little push-off and lays it in. He doesn't do it as often, though, like 2 times a game. Not even 2 times a game. Like one every other game, it feels like sometimes. I agree with you, though. That is one of his go-tos. He has a good floater. Illustrated NBA said, why are people so quick to get rid of Mann? It's getting rid of KPJ for an upgrade. That should be the priority. Does that look like something the Clippers are going to do? Mann's out of the game last night. Doesn't play a minute. KPJ plays almost 20. What I would do is have Terance Mann and Chris Dunn as your backup ball handlers in the second unit. Does that look like what the Clippers are going to do? Seems like they're committed to trying to figure this out with Kevin Porter Jr. And I get it. His ceiling is higher. Is he going to reach it? I don't know. You know, I've been talking about Colin Sexton a lot. I like Sexton. He's not the perfect fit because he's a little bit undersized, but he'd be a nice change of pace, backup point guard / shooting guard for the Clippers. Bay City said DJ played through it, made the and one. That's balls. He typically does play through it. Drive-by Buddy said motivation has no age, Adam. No, but like, you think motivation is a problem for Terance Mann? He was a late round pick. He was a 4-year guy at Florida State. He's been overlooked. He thought he was going to have to play overseas. I don't think Terance Mann is the type of guy you have to light a fire under. I don't think Terance Mann is somebody that isn't a hard worker. I think he clearly is. So this doesn't make sense to me. Richard said, I'm just jumping on. I know T-Man was a healthy scratch. His Ty Lue made an official announcement. No. F said, guaranteed money does that to you. I don't think that's it at all. Terance Mann does not strike me as someone who got fat and happy or is resting on his laurels because he got the extension. I don't think that's who Terance Mann is, guys. I don't know what you've been watching, but that is wild to me to think that Terance Mann needs added motivation. I think he's pretty self-motivated. Jason said, Miller just isn't there yet. It's year 2, and he will be okay, but his time ain't now. Jordan Miller. Yanni Tiers said if they trade Mann, Bones, and PJ for a big, then they are going to here's the problem. People bring up these 3-team trades. It's like teams don't have 3 open roster spots. Now, if you say they're just going to waive PJ and eat the contract, okay. But whenever you think about these trades, just know when people are making these trade machine things that work on paper and they're sending out 4 guys, the other team can't just absorb bringing in all those guys. It's a 15-man roster. Just because it makes the money work doesn't mean it's actually realistic at all. But Yanni Tier said, then they're going to have to sit either Batum or Bamba, so might as well include Bamba for a true consolidation and better return if that helps. Again, you're not offering a name of one of these bigs. I'm not hearing anything that's remotely feasible. Chris G said, hearing a lot of backup bigs are going a bit cheaper now, mostly for a player in seconds. A lot of aging centers can be looked at as a backup. You guys going to give me some names? You're just going to talk about, faceless players. Wayne said, when are your off-day Clippers talks? Should I just guess? Off day? You mean like what I'm doing today? It's when I have the time. Just hit the bell button or whatever it is, the notification button on your YouTube, and it will alert you whenever I go live. Mark Jag said, Dunn has good form on his shot. I want him to keep shooting when open. All we need is for him to get hot at the right time. He's talked about it recently, how better to get it out of his system now, the cold streak, than it happening in the playoffs or something. Cam Thomas, they don't have the assets to get Cam. They'd have to give up a first-round pick. I don't think under any scenario right now the Clippers should be giving up that first-round pick. Because even if that gets you, let's say hypothetically, Jimmy Butler, it doesn't matter if Kawhi can't stay healthy. If you bring in, a third star, whatever you want to call it, another high-quality all-star type of player. If Kawhi can't stay healthy, it doesn't matter. They need to see if Kawhi can stay healthy. There's only about 10 games before the trade deadline. I don't know if that's enough time to evaluate because Kawhi, by then I would hope that he's at 30 minutes, 35 minutes a night, but it might be another week of 20 to 25 minutes. Mike Dang said we got to look at Nets players. Who? And again, who are they getting? What's the trade? If you guys want to actually give me specifics here, I'll tell you what I think about it. Josiza B said, if attainable, how do you feel about Kuzma? I like Kuzma, but what's the move? How are they getting him? He has a declining salary over the next couple of years, and I've always been a fan, especially because I've seen him on good teams and how he can do the little things, because he hasn't been playing much defense in Washington, but I know he can. I used to think he was probably one of the Lakers' better defenders on Kawhi. So he's getting 23 this season, 23 and a half, 21 and a half next year, and then 19 the year after that. So you are committed. You got him for 2 years after this year before he's a restricted free agent, or unrestricted free agent, I should say. But who are you giving up? How are you enticing Michael Winger to make that move? Jason said, Cam Thomas is worth at least a first rounder. We do not have. They have one, but they probably shouldn't be using it. Yeah. Cameron Johnson's going to require a first rounder. If you think Cam Thomas is going to require a first rounder, so is Cameron Thomas. Yeah, and KPJ is making $3 million, guys. That doesn't really... It's not much of a bargaining chip or somebody to fill out a trade situation. And it looks like Coach Lue sees this as maybe something he can prove, that he can get more out of KPJ than they got out of him in Houston. He sees the player that he can be. Will he ever get there? Will he ever consistently be a more reliable player, making smarter decisions? I don't know. Hello Dolo said February 6th is the trade deadline. We're slowly but surely approaching it. Only thing I'm certain of is that L. Frank will push for is to offload PJ's expiring contract somewhere at the very least. Probably right. F said they don't have cap space and don't have his bird rights. Good chance KPJ is gone next season anyways. He's on a 2-year deal. Huh? My understanding is Kevin Porter Jr. is on a 2-year deal, guys. Yeah, I mean, he could be, but so he has a player option for $2.5 million for next season. Yanni Tears said the Clippers got rid of Shea for an upgrade. We all know how that worked out. I'm sure they have some trauma from that. Thus, KPJ is going to stay. I don't think there's much of a comparison between KPJ and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. That's an absurd parallel. But thanks, Yanni Tears. Kanza Talk said, T. Lou said in an interview, I just wanted to see something. Yes, we've actually, maybe you're late here, been playing that.
I just wanted to see something. I just wanted to see something.
We're on top of it here. We've been talking about the Terance Mann situation the last half hour. M7MD Boys said, I just wanted to see something. It was one of the greatest things ever said by Ty Lue.
I just wanted to see something.
It's not the first time he said it. That's one of his go-tos. Kind of like, I can't remember. Renzo the old head said, I will miss Mann, of course. He's not gone yet. But if he's being wasted on the bench and not playing, I would rather get a piece for him and let him get some time in a new team. Then he said, trade for Zion. All right, we aren't serious people here, apparently. Gonza said, how do you feel about Williams? Robert Williams? I'm a big fan. He just can't stay healthy. For a team that, look, if you can get him for cheap, sure. If you don't have to give up much for Robert Williams, he's an upgrade if he can play. A big upgrade over Mo Bamba if he can play. Sheeran Olenek floor raisers. I mean, I like both of them, yeah. I just don't know what would it take to get those guys. Jason says, I predict Cam Johnson's value will drop to second rounders in a trade. No, it won't. What? Why do you think Cam Thomas is going to require a first, but not Cameron Johnson? What's the logic there? Have you seen Cameron Johnson this season? He's been their best player consistently. He's getting 20 per game on 50% shooting and 44% from three. He's 28. The only issue with him has been health over the years, and he's been able to stay healthy. I don't know what you're talking about. If you think Cam Thomas is requiring a first, so is Cameron Johnson. Deca Fantastic said another Ty Lue go-to. I don't remember. Yeah.
I just wanted to see something.
All right, so let's hear from Ivica Zubac now being asked about Chris Dunn and his shooting slump right now. So he went 0 for 6 last night. Now, coming into last night's game, he was actually about 32, 33% the last 13 games after having a really bad stretch where he was shooting mid 20%, the middle section of the season so far. But last night he goes over 6, and that is going to absolutely tank your percentages. Yeah. So here was Zoo post game in the locker room.
If you look at Chris,
Tomer Azarli, the question. Tomer Azarli from Clutch Points.
if you look at Chris, kind of missed a lot of the shots usually, the open ones, and I think he got a little frustrated in the third. How are you guys kind of navigating and making sure he stays focused? Obviously, he's a big part of you guys defensively. How do you guys make sure that you kind of, not letting that bother him too much?
I mean, he knows we don't have to tell him anything. He knows those are great shots. We know those are great shots. He's wide open. He got to take them, and he's not letting it bother him. He's gonna shoot it when he's open, and we want him to shoot those. So we know they're gonna start falling, and he's doing a great job defensively, offensively. Today he did a great job playing that pocket, creating for others, playmaking. So. We're not worried about those going in. We know he works on it every day. They're going to start falling.
He works on it every day. They're going to start falling. I have no concerns long-term about Chris Dunn either with his shot, but I also am realistic in thinking that, yeah, he's around a 32%, 33%, three-point shooter. That's who he is. He's not a guy that should go 0 for 6 from 3 very often, but it might be 2 of 6. Somebody talking about Jonas Valanciunas and his numbers. So Valanciunas, the problem is, so I thought he was an unrestricted free agent after this season. He makes $10 million right now, but then $10 million the next year, $10 million the year after that. So he's not restricted till summer of or unrestricted free agent until the summer of 2027. Jonas Valanciunas. Yeah, he's definitely an upgrade at the backup center position, but he's not a elite defender. Like he's good against centers that try to back him down. He has some toughness to him, but in the pick and roll, you can't abuse him. You can go up against him in that way, Jonas Valanciunas. But I like him. Obviously, he has been a Clippers killer in the past. I don't know what it would take to get him. You're saying PJ Bones man? Maybe, but they might be able to get more. They can drive up the price most likely. Toxic saying, chat full of crazy people just speaking their fantasies. Usually, that's often how it goes. And then I'm like, please help me. Please help me. Please help me. Please help me. Trade talk is mind-numbing, as Petro some money would say. But in going back to what Ivica Zubac is saying here about Chris Dunn, they know what he means impact-wise to this team. A bunch of people in here last night were saying, oh, how can you say he had a good game, or how can you say it wasn't an awful game with him going 1 of 10? Because he had 8 assists to just 2 turnovers, was awesome in the pocket, in the roller position, was connecting so well out there with his passing, and then his defense is just incredible. And then I posted this a little bit earlier today, which got a lot of run. The Clippers' defensive rating with Chris Dunn on the court, if you want to see this at Follow Out of May, their defensive rating with him on the court is 104. Teams are only scoring 104 points per 100 possessions. That is elite. With him off the court, it skyrockets to 111, a 7-point difference in the on-off numbers with Chris Dunn defensively. So that alone easily makes up for his deficiencies on the offensive end and the rut he's been in with his outside shooting. Easily. He is a net positive because how good he is defensively. Look at estimated plus-minus rating for defenders in the league. He's at the top of the list, literally. He's that good on defense. I was listening to my guy BJ earlier today. I don't know what they're talking about. You got to understand, his defense is made up for his offense. Oh, and by the way, their offensive rating on the season with him on the court is 109.2. When he's off the court, it drops to 108.2. So he hasn't even really hurt them on the offensive side. When you look at offensive rating on off splits, 109.2 with him. It's not a great offensive rating, but it's better than without him, 108.2. Some point out that, well, okay, Adam. This was Ty who said a little more context needed. He plays a lot of his minutes next to the 4 best offensive players. So I'd say the fact that he's only 1 point better is probably more of an indictment. He's an obvious better fit for the second unit, though. Energy guy and not the obvious guy to leave open. Okay, there is something to this. It is fair that he plays with James Harden a lot, that he's playing right now with Kawhi, Ivica Zubac, Norman Powell. So his offensive rating shouldn't be too bad. But my point is, they aren't like 3 points worse per 100 possessions or 4 or 5 points worse per 100 possessions with him out there, I believe, next to those guys, to the point where he becomes a net negative. Because again, the swing with him off the court defensively, where the defensive rating goes from 104 on the court with him to 111 with him off the court, 7-point swing, there's no way his offense is hurting them that much to where he's now a net negative overall. And this is on the season. This is over 800 minutes played. As of late, some of the numbers are worse because he's been shooting so terribly, but the Clippers are chasing the fact that eventually that should turn around some. And when it does, they're going to be much better off with Chris Dunn. Now, I'm not arguing that Chris Dunn, who, yes, has the highest plus minus on the team. I've been telling you guys that for a month. I'm not arguing that Chris Dunn couldn't be taken out of the lineup, starting lineup for Derrick Jones Jr. I'm not. Because I think long-term, that is going to happen. Because the reason Chris Dunn is out there right now is to have another playmaker to take some of the playmaking responsibilities off of the plate of James Harden. But what's going to happen is when Kawhi looks more like himself, he's going to bring the ball up the floor a lot. He's going to do that for James Harden. Kawhi had some really good passes, by the way, last night. Connector passes. So the reasoning of having Chris Dunn out there will probably lessen as Kawhi's minutes ramp up. And therefore, it opens up the possibility of DJ being out there more. That's what's likely going to happen. But I don't hate Chris Dunn being in the starting lineup regardless. I just think long-term, DJ probably is the better fit when Kawhi is right. But we're not there yet. And that could be a couple of weeks. I'm just not overly concerned with Chris Dunn missing shots. And it comes down to box score watchers and guys last night in here saying, who I told to call in, pull up then. I gave him the phone number, call in, debate me on it. They didn't. 866-987-2570. They didn't call in. We're not on AM 570 right now. Don't call in. But if you're looking at his box score and you see 1 for 10 and 0 of 6 from 3, you think that guy was miserable and hurt the team. That is low-level basketball analysis. He went plus 10, the second best plus minus with the starters. And it's a one-game plus minus. I don't put everything into it. You know that. But I felt like he was making a positive impact with his defense and with his playmaking. 8 assists. Second most on the team. And some really nice passes to Ivica Zubac. In fact, I got a text earlier from Carlo Jimenez who brought up the numbers that nearly a fourth of Chris Dunn's assists this season are to Ivica Zubac. That's a really good connection, and I guarantee you that is part of the reason he's also in the starting lineup. He's been good finding Ivica Zubac. About a fourth, 25% of his assists this season are to Big Zoo. He's finding him. And you know how I feel about Big Zoo. But yeah, some people playing too much 2K. There are so many ways to affect the basketball game outside of just shooting. Does he need to be better? Does he need to knock down threes? Yes, he does. Because eventually, you're going to be playing 4-on-5 too often on the offensive end if teams just sag off of Chris Dunn like they have been and just completely playing off of him. That's bad. That's what was happening with Russell Westbrook. And there's something else that's been bugging me. A lot of people are trying to dunk on people that said earlier this season what an upgrade it was to have Chris Dunn instead of Russ. I'm still saying that. It is an upgrade. It is a much better fit for this Clippers team. I don't care that, look, hey, good for Russ. He's playing really well next to Jokic. It's Nikola Jokic. Yes, he can bring the best out of guys. He's one of the greatest passers in the history of the game. He can look over defenses because of his size and passing out of the high post for him. And he's otherworldly, so he can get Russ to his sweet spots and help him be better. It has been working over the last month after a slow start with those two playing next to one another. Great. Is anybody going to bring up how the Denver Nuggets have only been marginally better on the offensive side? In fact, their offensive rating is the exact same as last season. 4th. How about their defensive rating? Is anybody going to bring that part up? I will, because last season they were 8th defensively. This season, the Denver Nuggets are 17th. So they're the exact same offensive rating as they were last season with Russ, and they're much worse defensively. But people are giving, Russ and Denver and all this credit. And it's like, what? On the net, they're worse. I'm happy for Russ. I'm glad he found a spot because it wasn't working in LA with either team. And I'm not trying to put all the defensive problems on him, but they're playing at this much faster pace because of Russ, and I think it has hurt their defense. I don't see why people can't do fair analysis on everything that we saw from Russ the last year and a half with the Clippers and what we've seen so far with Chris Dunn. And that should lead you to saying, yes, Chris Dunn is the better fit for this Clippers team. No, Chris Dunn wouldn't be doing what Russ is in Denver, but he makes more sense on this Clippers team than Russ does. Russ just went 8 for his last 42. His final 5 games as a Clipper in a playoff series where they needed him, where Kawhi was basically out. And he went 8 for 42 the last 5 games. And people are now having seller's remorse that Russ is no longer a Clipper because he looks good next to Nikola Jokic. Who can't? The fit is working. Let me know how it works in the playoffs. If Nikola Jokic wins the championship with Russ, give him all the MVPs. Because I think Russ can lower your ceiling with his erratic play. I love watching him. He was one of my favorite players of this era too. But because things are working with Jokic, it's supposed to be proof that they lost the Russ trade of him going to Utah and then redirected to Denver and the Clippers getting Chris Dunn out of that. This is supposed to be proof that the Clippers should have kept Russell Westbrook. How? We saw him with the Clippers. He wasn't impacting the game like Chris Dunn is. He didn't have the best plus minus on the team like Chris Dunn has had. What are we doing here? Chris Dunn has helped them set a tone defensively. Russ sometimes played defense. He doesn't do it to the consistency or to the level that Chris Dunn does. I find this argument that's been going around. I saw it on Reddit. I see it in some tweets. My guy, BJ Matthews, maybe we'll talk about it at some point. Was talking about it earlier on the Pull Up podcast. And I'm just scratching my head going like, guys, because Russ is doing this with Denver does not mean he would be doing this with the Clippers. In fact, we saw it. It wasn't great. It was up and down at best. In fact, recently people were saying that KPJ is like Russ, and I've made that comparison too. Yeah, it's up and down. A lot of this is about fit. How do people not get that side of it? Baffles me. He's a better fit in Denver than Chris Dunn would be in Denver, but Chris Dunn is a better fit with the Clippers than Russ was with the Clippers. Do you understand that part of it? Chris Dunn has their best plus minus on the season. He's a plus 91 out there. Best plus minus on the Clippers. Almost 900 minutes on the court. Tell me that's not meaningful? Right behind him is Zoo. Right behind him, Harden, Batum, Powell. Those aren't their most impactful players that seem to always win their minutes? Or most of the time? I'm not just going to throw away that plus minus. I don't know how people can't see that Denver is in the exact same spot they were offensively last season. They do have a different dimension with playing faster with Russ, but their offensive rating is 4th, just like it was last season. But defensively, they're almost 10 spots worse. So I'm not trying to hate. I'm just trying to bring the full context into the conversation with Russell Westbrook. because people are talking about this a lot lately. In fact, their offensive rating is better with him off the court so far this season. Russ has a 114.7 offensive rating on the court. Off the court, they have a 117 offensive rating. They're better defensively with him off the court. On the court, they have a 113.4 defensive rating, the Denver Nuggets. Off the court, a 109.9 defensive rating. So some of this may be skewed by the early season results with Russ, but I'll take what Chris Dunn is doing with this Clippers team over what Russell Westbrook, and I appreciate his time here, and I appreciate the series against Phoenix, but come on. I love Chris Dunn because even when he's missing shots that he can hit, his impact in other ways still makes him a positive out there. I don't know. I've been hearing this conversation, this narrative about people trying to dunk on people, I think including me recently, because I said it's been a rough watch with Russell Westbrook earlier this season, which it certainly was with Denver. And I thought it was pretty clear the Clippers upgrade with Chris Dunn. And even with him going 0 of 6 last night and being in this overall shooting funk, I still feel like it's pretty damn clear. We can literally go back and look at how Russ looked as a Clipper. It's not a hypothetical. I think Chris Dunn has been better, more impactful, helping you win. And all the lineup data will tell you that. Like, what's more important than winning those minutes when you're out there? And that's what Chris Dunn has done. So I just don't understand it. Like, yeah, they have had some injuries there in Denver, but they're also playing at a completely different pace. And yeah, they lost KCP, but a bunch of people, Mike, are saying like they're way better now. Or this is so great. They're the same offensively, and defensively they're much worse. I don't understand it. I think it's just Russ stands, and KPJ doesn't have many stands. Might have one with me. I'm a big fan. I think Russ, we'll see. Hey, again, if Nikola Jokic wins a championship with Russ being a big part of it, because I've always felt like Russell Westbrook can lower your ceiling. But I also love watching him because of his energy. But like I always say, energy is great. Effectiveness and efficiency is better. He's a polarizing player, obviously. But I think overall, it's clear for the Clippers roster, Chris Dunn makes a lot more sense than Russell Westbrook with the way this team is constructed. I just wanted to get that rant out of the way there. It's something I've been thinking about, something that's been on my mind last couple of days with some of the commentary that I've seen being thrown around. You cannot deny Chris Dunn having the best plus minus on the Clippers team when we're almost at 1,000 minutes. That is not nothing. You cannot deny the defensive metrics that are out there for him. The estimated plus minus, it's crazy. It matches the eye test. Chris Dunn, if you just put a spotlight on him and watch him possession to possession, I don't think there are 3 guys that work harder on defense in the NBA and are as effective as him. Not just working hard. That effective. Watch him off ball. Watch him guard his man. It's easy to see the stuff he does when his man has the ball in his hands. Watch what he does outside of that. Yeah, I never question Russ playing hard. Defensively, sometimes, yeah. Once he was out of the running for 6 man or making an all defensive team last year, it did feel like the defensive drop off happened with him. I don't know if there's a connection there, but he started off the season better in that area. I love what Chris Dunn has been able to do because he is a constant reminder, just like Patrick Beverley was, of how you have to play every possession. How many times have you been on the floor for a basketball? How many times has he jumped a passing lane and baited good passers into making head-scratching turnovers? He's done it to Steph. He's done it to really good players. Looks like he can't get to it. Chris Dunn steal. He has been as vital to what this Clippers team has been able to do on the defensive end as anyone so far this season. That includes Zoo. And yeah, DJ's been great too. I have no regrets at all. I'm happy for Russ in Denver, but I'm also able to realize none of this stuff was happening with the Clippers. What's the variable? Jokic. Of course. He's one of the greatest basketball minds ever. And the fit works. It didn't with the Clippers. It does with Dunn. Don't look back on that being some missed opportunity. The Clippers shouldn't have gotten rid of Russ. This is a great move for both sides. All right. We'll check out the injury report later. Hopefully, neither DJ or Kawhi Leonard are on it. But that's what I'll be looking for. If there's any major news, I'll be back with you guys. You know, Clippers talk never ends. I'm Adam Mosland. Appreciate everybody. Cool conversation here. A lot of good comments. This was show 102, meaning 102 straight days of Clippers Talk episodes. Regardless if it was a game day or an off day, we haven't missed a day since the last day was October 4th. Trying to keep track of that. 7 days a week here. We'll talk to you guys soon. Clippers taking on Brooklyn, front end of a back-to-back tomorrow at Intuit Dome. Tip-off at 7:30, pregame here at 6:30. I'm Adam Mosland. Enjoy checking back with you then.